He's a community activist and a Macon-Bibb commissioner and mayor pro tem. I'm Randall Savage, and this is Close Up. And joining us today is Commissioner Al Tillman, holder of the District 9 Commission seat. Welcome back to Close Up.
Thank you for having me, Randall. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Well, you're mayor pro tem for a couple of years, and of course next year will be election year, and your name has been dropped as a potential candidate for mayor. Do you plan on doing that, or have you decided, or what?
Randall, I think for me, it's about fulfilling District 9 and the citizens that I represent. And I don't want to get caught out there and labeled as any decision I'm making is based on that. I will tell you that it's at least 4 people that have announced they are running. I'm not one of them. But I'm still waiting on the candidate to emerge. Schlesinger's a friend of mine, and and I'd like to see somebody like a Dr. James Beverly, who I would probably support.
His name has been mentioned.
Yeah, I think he would be a good choice that hadn't been mentioned. And I think it's going to take somebody with a diverse background to bring us all together. Somebody like a Dr. Beverly could do that. We possibly could consider it. But I think the concentration for me is working for the citizens of Macon-Bibb County and trying to improve their stability and their lives in this community.
Because if you were mayor, you'd have to give up your business, I guess, huh?
No. I mean, I've got a nonprofit, and mostly my entertainment business. We do most of our work on the weekends, and it's changed so much with the internet and social media. Where back in the day you could have one Michael Jackson or one Elvis Presley, and that's all you need. And so it's kind of changed a little bit with social media, where back in the day you could only be a promoter or a booking agent if you're in New York and LA. But so and here in Georgia, I've been blessed to be able to do both. And so with social media, everybody has their own web page, and so it's becoming a little bit more harder and difficult to just be exclusive to any artist.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I guess as it stands right now, what you're saying is you'll probably run for the re-election in District 9.
Yeah, I want to be in a position to be able to help people and to change some things. I will say this, I've been working on the old laws to be able to help this community, and probably if we can't accomplish that old laws and get it on the ballot, I would probably say for sure that I'll probably leave the commission for sure. And so I think at some point you have to be willing to pass the torch and move on, and give somebody else an opportunity. And so my goals, I came in office wanting to complete Fillmore Thomas log cabin, and I've been blessed to help Henry Barnes Park and Eisenhower, which was a bonus, and Ban the Box initiative that President Obama signed back before he left office. And so if I walk away, I could say the mission's complete, but I think I want to be in a position where you could do more, help folks, and if you make a promise or a commitment to people, that you could keep it. And so during the State of the Union a couple of years ago, the mayor said that we needed the OLAS, and a lot of us got on board with the OLAS, and there was no plan B. And so I promised and fought and been fighting for the OLAS. And so if I can't deliver the OLAS to relieve property tax owners, I think it would be time to move on, because I would have failed in that commitment and promise. Okay,
that's back with the General Assembly right now.
Right. The local delegation, and we've been working. Once we raised the millage rate last year, it was contingent upon getting the OLAS. I knew that it was tough on citizens and property owners, and so the reason why I did it, because I just felt strongly that we could fight and get the OLAS. And so if we don't get the OLAS, and governments don't always admit when they made a mistake or gotten it wrong, but we've got to be able to offer some property tax relief to citizens. It's just not fair that property owners in this community are only paying the burden when everybody else that's not property owners are just benefiting from everybody else.
Would you want all the proceeds from an OLAS to go to property tax relief?
The way the bill is written, Randall, that 100% would go toward property owners. as a 6 or 7 mil rollback, the way the state law is written. But we do have a grace period about 10 months that we can collect $25 million, and I think half of that ought to be geared toward the general fund, and the other half could go to do some property development, blight remediation, to help with our libraries and public transit and so forth. But for the most part, 100% of that rollback after that would be geared toward property tax relief.
So, as it stands now, does it look good that the OLOS proposal is going to make it to the General Assembly?
Well, right now, you know, there's one or two legislators that want to see more information, and then this week, you know, we propose. Earlier this week, you will have seen where I've asked for a special call meeting this past Tuesday, 2 o'clock, to get that legislation moving, so we can get it to the General Assembly up in Atlanta before crossover day.
Crossover day is next week, I guess.
Well, you got about 15 days left before they finish, but you're right. We've got to get that bill in, and they've got to put forth the legislation on it to get it, and hopefully they understand. And it's just about putting it on the ballot. It's not to say whether it's going to pass, and so it's just simply saying give the voters an opportunity to choose whether they themselves want to give themselves a tax relief. And I think rolling the millage rate back 5, 6, 7 mils, I don't think anybody would say no to that.
Have you been out in the community discussing this?
Absolutely, and there's been a poll done where at least 60% of the folks say they would support an OLOS if it's put on the ballot. But, you know, the Georgia General Assembly, which composed of 8 delegation members, that would be their choice to just add it, put it on the ballot as a referendum, and then, you know, we get out here and fight for it, or those that oppose it, and let's just see, you know, which team or which side prevails.
Would it be a special if it gets through the General Assembly? Would it be a special election this year, or would you have to wait till next year?
I think you could do it later this year in September or November. So there's a possibility that it will be a special election, and something else will possibly be on the ballot as well. And so I'm hoping that we could go ahead and get it on the ballot by the end of this year, so it could go into effect by 2020 during the next administration. And so this would benefit the next administration. It would at least replenish the funds of the reserve by at least $12 to $15 million.
And there's nothing in the works right now to spend that, I guess. So.
No, sir. No, sir. I think, you know, in government, you know, you have to learn your lesson. You can't keep spending what you don't have.
Okay.
And so,
we'll take a short break. We'll be right back. Close up. We're back close up, and our guest today is Macon-Bibb Commissioner Al Tillman. And prior to the break, we were talking about the OLOS and that type proposal. But another thing we'd like to discuss is Interstate 1675 interchange. Veteran lawmaker State David Lucas, or POWMIA Major Bobby Jones, the current name. What do you think it should be named?
I think the current name should remain as it is. I'm a veteran, and I respect and understand the POWs, those men and women that are missing. But I think the idea was you can always add an additional name. Senator Lucas has brought hundreds of millions of dollars to the I-16-75 interchange, and I think others just saw it as a symbolic way, as a gesture to add his name to it. And sort of like Atlanta Airport, where you got you know, Hartsville Jackson Airport, you can have more than one name. And so the Bobby Jones, Lucas, as I think is the idea. And so, you know, I certainly wouldn't just oppose to saying let's just not change it, let's just change it to Senator Lucas and leave off Bobby Jones, Major Bobby Jones, and I don't think that would be right. So I think, you know, if an opportunity came up where you could add somebody to it, if you want to, you know, do a good gesture to recognize the millions of dollars that Senator has brought, I think you just do that.
Who gets final say? Would it be the state or the commission?
I think the state in those particular issues. I think what happens in a local municipality is name changes, road changes, and things of that nature come as a suggestion by family, friends, and then it could bring it to your local government, and we can just say we support this idea, but it's ultimately up to the folks in Atlanta to ultimately make that decision. And I think eventually it will happen at some point.
So you think it'll be a double name then?
Yeah, and I don't think anything would be wrong with that. I don't think it devalues the major's name or anything, because, I mean, the interstate now is going to probably look like a little baby spaghetti junction in Atlanta. It's going to be so huge. So around there's probably enough room to add my name and your name.
No thanks. You get lost in all the turns and the bridges they got going on.
It's huge, and it's a great project as well. So it's room for Senator Luca's name, and no disrespect to the family or anybody out there. So and I do understand, because prisoners of war have suffered and have given the ultimate sacrifice, and we don't even know where the major is at this point.
Right. Commissioner Virgil Watkins, he was charged with DUI this past week. What do you know about that, and what do you think about that?
I think you have to own it, take responsibilities of your actions. I mean, you know, I remember here a former sportscaster here at your station actually hit and may have seriously injured or killed somebody, and so it's dangerous anytime you drink and drive. I think Virgil's a smart, educated guy, and so I think he'll learn from this and just move on. I mean, Virgil has been so helpful to this community, to our government. He's a numbers guy, he's a finance guy, he's been around a long time, and he's still young. He can have an opportunity to learn from this, and I just wish him well. But Randall, the only thing that breaks my heart is all the work that he's been doing over the last few weeks, as far as even with the budget and helping those folks in Crystal Lake, that one of the young men at Crystal Lake that he put up in a room for 5 days made fun of him on social media. And that kind of broke my heart, and it just, even the people that you help sometimes will turn on you. And so we wish Virgil well, and I support him, and hopefully he can move on and get this behind him as quickly as possible.
Do you know if he's ever talked about having aspirations for a higher office?
You know, I would like to see Virgil in the higher office. I think he would make a great senator, state representative, or Virgil's name should be, I think, at the top of the list a lot of times when we're talking about the mayor's race. I mean, he's been around over 10 years. He's been a finance person. He's been over a public safety chairman under the old government, and he's got a master's degree, and so he's a businessman in real estate. And so his name, to me, not Al Tillman, not Lester Miller, not Schlesinger. His name should be the guy that we all could say, here's a young man that we all should get behind. But we know now he's made a mistake, and you have to embrace it. But you remember now, I said his name should be. Why it's not, is up for those out there in the community. And I think he could bounce back, and one day he could probably make us a great mayor or state representative or senator.
Has he ever discussed that possibility with you?
We've had that discussion. Matter of fact, we had discussion in Denver, and I challenged him that I thought that he should throw his hat in the ring, and I made some suggestions before. So yes, we have had that conversation where because my ultimate goal was to be a liaison, so to speak, a person that would be a go-between with the mayor, the commissioners, and the community. And sometimes I think that's missing in the administration, that you don't have a true person to do that. And so Commissioner Watkins and I have had that conversation, and I hope that he still has aspirations to do that, because I think as a young man who's in his early 30s, he could learn from this, and he's got so many years ahead of himself if that's what he decides to do. You
mentioned being able to communicate within the community, and he would have that. You said it's non-existent now. The Mayor Rickard doesn't have that.
Well, The mayor and I talk often. That I say to him a lot. I said, I think you really need a true go-between person that's connected to not only the commission but to the community, and that's what Charles Dudley served many years ago for former Mayor Jack Ellis. He was that go-between. I think because of whether it's budget constraints that you have people, but I don't think he truly has a person that will keep the pulse of the community to know what's going on and what's happening. And I say that just based on things that you're not as responsive when people are shot and killed, or crises like Crystal Lake. People want to see their mayor out front doing tough times. I mean, doing Hurricane Irma. The mayor, he's having behind the scene meetings, but people have to realize the mayor allows people that he has hired to do their job. But then some of us want to say, we think the mayor should lead, and you should be the person out front. I even asked the mayor why he's never done close-up. Do you even realize that the mayor has never done your show in all the years that he's been a mayor?
I didn't. We'll take a short break.
And I asked him about that, and I said, why don't you do his show?
We're back to close-up, and our guest today is Commissioner Al Tillman. Prior to the break, we were talking about the mayor, and you were pointing out that he's never done close-up. He has done close-up when he was a candidate.
I'm not talking about as a candidate. I'm not a candidate right now. I think you know what I mean, 11 and a half, 12 years. We had that conversation, and I don't think you realize that in the public. I think the public would love to hear from the mayor, so I think you should reach out and let's start a movement to get the mayor to come do close-up.
Well, maybe we'll give him an invitation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Downtown parking meters.
Mm-hmm.
They're all over the place down there anymore.
Yeah.
They once were taken away, and now they're back. Are they? What was the purpose of it? I know they're accomplishing the mission.
Yeah, I think the original mission was to ensure that people that came downtown as patrons to do business, to shop, had a place to park. And what would happen, Randall, is employers and folk would just leave the cars there for 2, 3, 4 hours. And so the whole idea was just to give people an opportunity where they can make sure they had a place to park. And that was the whole idea behind the parking meters. And I think, sometimes we make an error when we give up, certain finances, and we turn it over to the Urban Development Authority to collect the revenue from it. And it's supposed to go back into development. And after that, then it'll come back to the general fund as far as the overflow of the finances. But right now, we had a recent update, and they've kind of broken even about $500,000 they put into it. And I didn't realize we were going to have that many meters. And I don't suggest meters around City Hall or around the courthouse where you have to do business. And so I had a chance as the Mayor Pro Tem to meet with the UDA, and they've agreed that, doing business hours, such as the jury is meeting at the courthouse, and when business is conducted at City Hall, that they would be...
Are they going to remove those meters?
No, they're not going to remove them, but
they'll put a hood over them?
Well, they're just limited. They won't be out ticketing folks. And so if you're doing business at City Hall or in the courthouse as a juror, and so I'm satisfied that, they've agreed to do those things.
Free passes for elected officials, you think?
We have downtown parking, and we can park in our designated spot and walk anywhere downtown. When parking meters came up for me personally, my thing was there's something called an ECI that's in windshields of cars that I discovered were for construction workers that was downtown doing business. And what I said was, commissioners and elected officials should be given the same thing that construction workers or people downtown doing business. Because if a commissioner's downtown doing business, then why we couldn't get the ECI sticker in our car as well?
What if he just down there doing recreation?
Well, I think that's different. I think that's different where if you're downtown and you're on your personal time and lollygagging, everybody should be ticketed and given a ticket, and you have to be fair across the board. My concerning issue was a police officer's vehicle was ticketed, and some people thought that was a joke or thought that, oh, he should be ticketed, and it was fair. He was parked there 2 days. Well, essentially, the government gave you permission. So when you get a ticket, Randall, think about it. You didn't give the individual a ticket. You gave the car a ticket, which is owned by the government.
That car didn't get there by itself.
That's right, but it's owned by the government. So think about it. When you have an issue, there's a husband, a wife, a boyfriend, a girlfriend says, it wasn't me driving. They've accumulated all these tickets. The tickets go with the car, not with the individual, the registration and the tag. And so the registration and the tag belong to Macon-Bibb County. So essentially, you were giving Macon-Bibb County a ticket, the people that gave you permission. That was my point, not the officer. So now if you want to deal with the officer, you go and talk to his boss and say, hey, he's parking his car here and we need to deal with him. In the meantime, you're essentially writing a ticket to the people that gave you permission, which is the government.
Public forums. You had several of them last year. You plan on having this year?
Randall,
as well?
I think it's always important, and I've said this to Commissioner Allen, that we've got to get back out to Lozella. I think it's always important to have community forums. Before Fillmore Thomas, a log cabin was built, I had over 25 forums with family and neighbors and community to get their input. And you just can't say and think, well, I know what they want. You have to engage and give people an opportunity. And although you've done it once, you got to keep doing it, because new people show up and get into government, new people move to town, and people just want to know what's going on. So you got to always, in my opinion, have public community, give people opportunity to voice their concerns, because most people that's coming to the government, even speaking at our meetings, they want to be a part and they want to be heard. And so we are elected officials, but before we became elected officials, we were average citizens that had concerns and issues as well. That what made us get into it. And so it's important to know what the community and your constituents want. And that's why I think the forums are important.
Of course, you're talking about hear what the people want. You get complaints. What is the biggest complaints you get?
I think some of the biggest complaints is blight. Can you tear this house down? Can you get these people to cut their grass? And a lot of times people don't realize that it's not the government's fault. We cannot control property that we don't own. And I think a lot of times people assume because we're the government that we can go and just tear a house down. It takes years. You have to go through a court process, municipal court. You have to go through inspection and has to go out and look at it. And if the property becomes so bad and people are not paying taxes on it, the Land Bank Authority will eventually take the property and we own it, and then we can tear it down and put a lien on it and then try to resell it. And so the biggest complaints, and that's why it's important to get the old lots to be able to do some blight remediation. I just think when the new government started back in 2014, the biggest mistake we made was not going out acquiring a $40 to $50 million of blight. In Detroit, in Charleston, South Carolina, Denver, Colorado, you can't find trash on the street, sofas, mattresses, blighted houses and properties all over. They immediately remove those structures, and they've got things in place. And I think we're beginning to get some things in place, Randall. But I just don't think we've taken blight serious in this community. And people need to realize that we don't own the properties. Folks wanted a new house, so they won't move in grandmama and grandfather's house. If they did, the house is paid for, you can put some new siding on it, fix it up, and you have a new house. But unfortunate, people don't want to do that. They want a new home themselves. And so the property becomes blighted, nobody pays it, and it just looks bad, and people automatically think it's our fault.
You made a trip to Dublin recently. What was that? Was that the official business, or personal business? What was going
Randall,
on?
I'm a veteran. I'm a military veteran, and I go to the VA at the veteran, and I went and had a checkup. And a lot of folks from Macon, we choose to go down to Dublin. We get a chance to meet folks. We get a chance to talk to people and even educate them on veteran issues and services. And so I'm one of those folks that do that and go down and speak to veterans down at the VA in Dublin, and I enjoy that. And I think they need to be educated on their rights and things that happen to them in the military. And people can reach out. You can call me at 478-951-2409. People just have served this country and they don't know their rights and things that they're entitled to, and the military and the veterans VA will take care of their veterans, and so we can get them off on the bridges and in deplorable conditions, and so we have to do that.
Commissioner, appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you, sir.
Right.
It's always a pleasure.
I'm Randall. See you next time. We'll close up.